Hey, yeah, do you go to your parents' house and rifle through their photo albums to look at pictures of yourself when you're a kid? I'm at Mum's today and there was one particular photo I was looking for because as I drove over to Wanganui, I remembered raising my calves. So just let me tell you the story. I'm going to show you a picture first. See this little girl here? That's me with my calves. I must have been 11, and this is when I first got them. That's me with my best friend when we were kids. So when I was 11, my dad said, "Sarah, we're going to give you a couple of calves to raise." And I still remember the day he brought them home. So there was this old wooden trailer that Dad used to have with metal surrounds and wire netting. And these little teeny tiny black and white Frisian calves came, and they sort of skidded around and they were scared. They were just such little babies when they first came. And Dad had made a pen for them. So even though I'm a city girl, lived 5 minutes from the centre of town, we happened to live on a hill with 4 acres of grassy hillside below us, so we had space to raise a couple of I think we used to call them beasts, cattle, whatever it is. Anyway, so Dad brought these calves home and we put them in the pen, and they were so fragile and it was my job to keep them alive. So what did keeping them alive entail, you might ask? So it meant that I had to have an alarm in my room and I had to get up probably 40 minutes, an hour earlier than normal. Now it would have been early spring, so it was cold, and I used to get up and put on my things and it was still dark, and I'd go into the wash house and I had to mix this milk for them in 2 little buckets, and it stank. And it was a hard job because if you mixed it wrong, it would go lumpy. But if I learned how to mix it right, and then I would carry those 2 little buckets down to their little pen. And Dad had put on these buckets, he'd put holes in the bottom of them, and they had teats that came out, and he'd made a sort of a frame that the buckets could sit in, and they'd drink the milk. So to start off with, I think my little calves had just a wee bit of milk in the bottom, but as each week went by, that amount increased and increased until in the end they were having like a full bucket of milk for breakfast and then another full bucket of milk each for tea. So now look at me. Do I look like the strongest chicken in the world? I don't think so. And I certainly wasn't back when I was little. So to start off with, carrying these 2 buckets of milk, that was really hard, but there was only that much milk in each bucket. But to end up with, I was carrying 2 full buckets of milk like a dairy maid down to my calf pen every morning, and I managed it. I guess my muscles had built up. And I fed those little calves until they got bigger and bigger, and eventually we decreased the amount of milk because they took over with feeding their grass. And yeah, that cost me a little bit. It cost me getting up early every morning, way earlier than normal, and a little bit of discomfort. But as I drove over today and I was thinking about those calves, a big smile came on my face, and it's a good memory. Those calves used to suck on my hand, and when they were older, I'd go down to the paddock and I'd call them, and they'd just come running. And on a beautiful spring day when the pasture was full of buttercups and stuff, they'd frolic around, and it was great. Okay, the bad part of the story, well, kind of two. When they got bigger, they would bunt. They'd push on the teats, which I guess is a good thing to do if your mum's a cow. Not so good if your mum is a plastic bucket with a rubber teat sticking out, because when they bunted on it, the whole thing would get pushed into the bucket, and then the milk would start pouring out of this hole about this size in the bucket, and the only thing to do was to plunge my hand in and actually find the teat and put it back in. So that was a bit disgusting. And the other not so good part of the story, sorry to all you vegetarians and vegans, when the calves got bigger, the bull was put on with them, and one of my calves went into calf, and she had a calf and was eventually sold as a dairy cow, but the other one didn't, so she went to the freezing works, and well, maybe we ate her. Okay, so you ask, why do I tell this story? I guess the reason I'm telling the story for my art challenge corner this week is because of this quote, and it's, I don't know, can you see it? It says, "Just a little bit more." And this quote is a quote, I've heard it from Terry Savoy Phil recently, who I listen to a lot, is about requiring more of yourself. Requiring something of yourself that might be outside of your comfort zone. And the thing is, when we require a little bit more of ourselves, what we often find is that it's in that area outside our comfort zone where the good stuff actually is. It might be training you're doing for a marathon. It might be a wee bit more at work. Goodness, in my job I'm requiring so much more of myself. I've got skills I'm trying to learn, things I'm trying to do. I've got a vision of what I want Sara Platt art to be in the nation, and it's costing me. It's really costing me. At the moment, I say that quote to myself in the evenings after tea when I'm tired. All I want to do is watch TV, quite frankly, at that time. And I say to myself, no, Sara, just a little bit more. And I've got to deal with myself where I have to do at least one useful thing in the evening before I'm allowed to sit down and watch whatever TV show it is that I find relaxing. It just might be doing the ironing and putting the washing away. I don't know. It might be something for work, but I'm requiring just a little bit more. And another quote that I'm learning to say to myself a lot, I hope I've spelt this right, I'm dyslexic, please forgive me if I haven't, is winning credibility with me. So that's one of the things I want. When I go to bed at night, I want to have won credibility with myself and to have done something that I feel proud of. You know, it might cost a bit more, like feeding those calves, getting up early in the morning, but I did something good. I raised a couple of calves to adulthood, even if we did eat one of them. Sorry again. So yeah, my challenge to you this week is, what is your just a little bit more? What just a little bit more thing could you do that might cost you something, that's going to bring about something in your life that you're going to say, yep, that was worthwhile and I've won credibility with me. So think on it. Hope you've enjoyed my video today. Have a great week.